All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. We've got a very interesting program this morning, and then we'll have our meeting. So at this point, I'm going to pitch it over to Mr. Klein and let him introduce our guest speakers for today.
Well, I thought it would tell me it was recording to the cloud. Thank you very much, Marcus. There's the statement going up on Larry, so we got it made. To do something on Radiosondes. Who knows what a radiosonde is? Cool. The nifty thing is you're going to learn a whole lot more about it and how you can get one for your very own, and it becomes an addiction like these two guys have done. Bob and Rick, isn't there a morning show guys like that? No, Bob and Tom. Bob and Tom, that's right. Bob and Rick are the two that are chasing these locally. Bob started out probably 3 or 4 months ago, said, "Do you think this is cool?" And then Rick got involved, and he's an addict. And there isn't Radiosondes Anonymous, right?
I don't think. Well, Ed's working on a 13-step program.
We'll get him a 13-step program. So hopefully 1 or 2 of you will get addicted as well and have fun with them. Both of these guys are local hams. Both of them have done a lot of stuff. Bob's just in from Tulsa. He just moved to the local area. Rick's been here since he was a little guy. And it was his 4th time licensed? 3rd time? 4, I think. Yeah, 4. He gets new licenses every once in a while, but he's currently AI5IJ. So I'm going to introduce to you Bob and Rick, and I don't know who starts this thing off. Rick.
I started up.
Bob does. So Bob, enjoy the day.
Okay.
Thank you much.
All right. Well, thank you much for inviting us in. It was an interesting deal. Like you said, we just moved over from Tulsa a few months ago, and I went to. Oh, okay. Can you see me? Oh, there's the camera. Okay. So just moved a few months ago, and I had been hearing about the weather balloons that get launched here out of Norman all the time. And so I went to Elmer Knight and I said, "Who's the expert on the weather balloons?" And the message I got was, "Bob, when you figure it out, you can make a presentation." So here we are today. And I also got Rick interested in it, and he's just taken off like wildfire. So it's been a fun time for us. So yeah, if you don't mind, I've got Rick over here. I'm going to start it out today, and then I've just got some static slides, and then part of the way through, I'm going to turn it over to Rick. He's going to have some live demos of some of the materials, and he's also going to correct all the mistakes I've made in the first part of the presentation. And then I've got a couple of slides at the very end. So let's go ahead and start through the list of topics there. We're going to talk about what is a radiosonde, why would a ham be interested in radiosondes, what's the minimum I need to track, what info can I get if I'm tracking them, what do I need to chase and or recover that's different than tracking, and then what can I do if I'm able to recover a radiosonde. So next slide there for us. So what's a radiosonde? Well, it's a high altitude balloon, and it has a sensor package attached. And the sensors can have a GPS. Typically they have GPS, temperature, and humidity for the ones that get sent from Norman here. And then occasionally they'll do one that has a pressure sensor in it as well. They routinely launch twice a day here out of Norman, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., 365. It's a like clockwork kind of a deal. They transmit using a protocol called Horus, which was described as a 4 frequency shift keying kind of a protocol. Here in Norman, they typically broadcast on 404.2 megahertz, but it'll be somewhere in the range of 400 to 406 is if you travel anywhere in the US, it'll typically be somewhere in that band. The balloons typically go up to about 115,000 feet. That's 22 miles or 33 kilometers for guys like Rick over here. And when it pops, then they drift back down. There's a little small parachute. I've got an example over here in the box if somebody wants to see it afterwards. The flight lasts 2 to 3.5 hours, depending on the winds and how far up it goes and so on. The landing point varies dramatically. I've just been kind of monitoring this off and on over the last few months, and I've seen it go as far east, land as far east as near McAllister, and as far west as near Lawton. And so if you decide you're going to chase one, you might want to check and see where is it going to land first, because you might have a 15-minute drive, you might have a 2-hour drive each way. And so it's handy to know roughly where it's going to land. The National Weather Service suggests that you recycle or dispose of them properly. Back in the day, they used to have a little mail bag that was attached to it, and they wanted you to mail it back to them. And for whatever reason, they've decided they don't want you to do that anymore, which is good for us because that means we get to pick them up for free. Next slide there, Rick, for me. This is a typical balloon house, they call it, that they launched them from. Rick's got a really nice video from the new place they launched from down at the OU campus. If you notice, about a 1/4 mile from here, there's an old building that looks just like this, and that's where they launched them for many, many years. There's about 160 to 180 locations here in the US that they launch balloons from. It's not just a US deal. They launched these balloons from all around the world. We have one launch point in Oklahoma, Norman. Texas has 3, so you can kind of get a sense for how things get spread out across the US for the launch points. Next slide. This has nothing to do with our radiosonde, but it shows what happens when a balloon pops at 22 miles up. And you get a sense that it looks really cold up there, and that's because it's typically about -70 degrees C at that altitude. And I just thought this was a neat picture. And it's an example of what the radiosonde could see if it had eyes. Okay, next slide shows what these look like. We've got some examples here, and I think Rick is going to pass one of these little styrofoam containers around. On there it says, "This is a harmless weather device. Please dispose of properly."
This one has a special message.
Yeah,
too.
and they have handwritten notes on them. The couple that I have the date and Norman, Oklahoma written on them. This one has a special note to somebody's best friend forever, we'll say. Okay, next slide shows the inside of one of these radiosondes. By the way, this is the RS-41NG. There's a real common one here in the US. And so you can get a sense for what it looks like. And Rick will talk about some of the details of these in a little bit more detail here in just a bit. Next slide shows what the signal looks like. That waterfall down the right-hand side, this is out of a software program called SDR Sharp with a software-defined dongle doing the decoding of the signal. And so you can see it's a continuous kind of a cycle. It's not on for a little bit and off for a little bit. Like I said, it's a 4 FSK protocol, and it's described as more effective than APRS. How many have used APRS for some of their activities? Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about APRS here in just a bit. This is described as giving a further distance than APRS and also more reliable in the signal. Okay, next slide. Why would a ham be interested? Well, several reasons. For one, it's a possible gateway into high altitude ballooning or pico ballooning. And as I understand it, the differences between those two is these radiosondes are typically used by the National Weather Service for high altitude ballooning. They've got a small device on their sensor package, small batteries, last for a few hours. It goes up, the balloon pops, and it's recording information about temperature, pressure, humidity, and so on, and its location. And as it comes back down, it's a few hours. Pico ballooning, on the other hand, is instead of having batteries, you have a couple of small solar panels, and instead of batteries, a couple of super capacitors. And so you'll launch these things, and they may cruise along at 40,000, 50,000 feet. They collect energy from the solar panel, drive a little small 20-watt milliamp or milliwatt radio that's an HF kind of a radio, using Whisper as a protocol, transmit once every 20 minutes or so, go silent while it's in the dark, and then start back up again next time it's in the sunlight. So some of those can go around the globe multiple times. And so it's a totally different deal, but it's somewhat related in people's mindsets.
And
It also gives you an opportunity to practice a fox hunt, because you've got something that you can trace. It's a UHF signal, and so you can use a directional antenna and follow around with that if you'd like, and learn how to attenuate the signal so that you still have directionality, even though you might be in a situation where it's a fairly strong signal as you get closer to it. So kind of a fun way to practice that. You can also learn about how this data feeds into the weather prediction. And most of us talk about the weather once or twice a day or a week or a month. And so this is sort of the front end of the whole process of collecting information about the winds and the temperatures and the humidities at different levels, and how that feeds into the weather prediction models. And it's kind of neat that we're here in Norman. There's a huge National Weather Center down at the OU campus. I've not been inside there, but I took the virtual tour the other day. They've got some really neat stuff there. So hopefully a lot of you guys have already been through that and looked it over. It's also a great way to help your kids and grandkids with possible school, science, technology, engineering, and math kind of projects, and really on multiple fronts. So there's the weather aspect. There's also a radio element to it, of course, and also computers, because there's a lot of decoding of that signal that comes into play. So, you could help kids in any one of those areas to get a good grade in science class. If it's retrieved, you can reprogram them with ham radio frequencies and relaunch them, or you can just use them as a GPS tracker, for instance. It's got a serial port on there, and since it's got a GPS device receiver on there, it spits out the signal out of that on the serial port. So if you wanted to, you could track your 16-year-old when he says, "I want to borrow the car," and you say, "Yeah, come straight home." Well, guess what? You can check him later and see how he did. You can also use it as a mini weather station, because it does send out temperature and pressure on a very quick basis, or you could use it as the fox in a fox and hound kind of a deal. And next slide is free. So now you do have to, Rick can tell you about fuel charges to go chase these things all over the country. And you may have a emergency room charge for a snake bite or poison ivy or something like that, because they come down in all kinds of places. Again, Rick will talk about that here in just a bit. Okay, so what do we get for free? Well, this package contains a really nice, powerful, but energy efficient STM32 CPU. It has 24 megahertz clock, so it's pretty quick. And it has 64 kbytes of flash, so you can put quite a bit of programming in it. It has a U-Blocks, which is a well-known brand GPS receiver. This is about 2 generations back, but it's a really good one. I've seen typically on the launches around here locally that they'll have 10 or so satellites that it's picking up at any given time. And that's more than enough to have a nice accurate signal. It also has a transmitter that's a little Silicon Labs 4032. It puts out about 60 milliwatts, which may not sound like much until you realize that these things can be heard a long ways away. So when I first started watching these things here locally, I noticed that there was a guy up north of Tulsa, Owasso, which is over 100 miles from here, and he was routinely tracking these things and feeding that signal back into a thing called Sonde Hub. And so very low power, but line of sight does wonders. Okay, next slide. What do we need? What's the minimum you would need to track? The minimum is stuff you already have, likely a PC or a smart device like a phone or a tablet with a browser and a connection to the internet. And if you go to this location, sondehub.org, and scroll over to the area that you care about, then there'll be a icon that you can click on, and it'll tell you the details that are being transmitted right then. And so there'll be some examples that we'll do here in just a bit. Next slide. What info do I get while I'm tracking? Well, if you're doing it during the window that it's actually still up in the air, like say 2 or 3 hours after, up to 2 or 3 hours after 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., you see the sonde itself on a map. If it's ascending, it looks like a balloon. If it's descending, it looks like it's a parachute kind of an icon. You'll see the track that it's already accomplished and a future or predicted track on the sondehub.org site. You see a little bullseye that shows where they predict it's going to land. That predicted site varies because it updates the projection as the flight is in progress. So you'll see it move around some. It could move several miles, 5 miles, 10 miles over the course of the flight. You can also see all the other radiosondes that are in the air in progress. And if people choose to, they can turn on a switch, and some of the software we'll talk about, and you can actually see where their chase cars are relative to the sondes themselves. Otherwise, you can look at the historical data from past flights. And now I'm going to just skip over some maps because Rick's going to talk about all these things here in just a little bit. I put them in the slide set just in case somebody wanted to review the slides at a later date. The information will all be there together. Okay, so what's needed to track the device or chase it? Well, we talked already about if you just want to track it and sit at home or carry your phone or tablet with you, you can use that Sonde Hub. Here's a couple of other options. One is a Raspberry Pi based system, and the other one is a little microcontroller development board called a LilyGo T-Beam STM32. And the name of it continues on with a bunch of other things. So the name of it is longer than it would take you to order it from Amazon. But it's a very powerful device. We've got some examples here, and Rick's going to show you some of those live as well. So the next slide is with the Raspberry Pi. Here are the items that you would typically use. And I've got one in the whole kit and caboodle over in this little small tub over here. And so you can see it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. We're talking about a thing about this big. So Raspberry Pi 3 or 4, they're starting to be in a little bit better supply. For a while, they were unobtainium. About 6 months ago, I actually bought one through Mouser, and they showed it as back ordered, but I had read that they're really good about fulfilling their back orders. So I went ahead, ordered one. I ordered the 8 gigabyte one for $75. That's the list price, which is really unusual. And they instantly charged my credit card, which was not great. But 2 weeks later, I had the thing in the mail. So if you're not in a hurry, that's a good way to go and, get a decent price at it. You also need a RTL SDR, and I guess I could hold these up here. Let me do this. So I don't know if this shows up very well on the camera. Can you see that? So this little guy right here is a software-defined radio dongle between my fingers here, about 35 bucks. And here's a Raspberry Pi with a case that's about 10 bucks. Here's a keyboard that goes with this thing. Here's a little 12-volt driven monitor. And then I've got one other thing to show you is a little dongle that's on the list there. You don't really need this unless you're wanting to chase it and have your information about your location sent back to SondHub so that other people can see where you are relative to the rest of the world. So again, fits in a relatively small package. Thanks, Mark.
But you wouldn't miss it if something went gone, right?
Not for long. Of course, there's a battery in there if you want to run mobile. And there was an optional thing on there. There was a couple of other things attached to the SDR dongle. One was a low noise amplifier, and it's a little small box about that big, and a 403 megahertz filter. For a long time, I didn't have those two things, and I was able to track just fine. Okay, next slide. Now, of course, since it's a Raspberry Pi, you need some software to load on there. So here's a couple of links to some software packages that allow you to track the thing. And then the Chase Mapper one, the second one on the list there, lets you log where your vehicle is. And that's what sends your location with that GPS dongle that I had up a minute ago back to SondHub. And so then you can see, other people can see where you are, which is kind of handy. If you decide I'm going to go chase something and you see that Rick is already out there, for instance, then you may or may not want to take the time to gather up all your stuff and go. The next part of this is about.
Or you could just go help him pull it out of the tree.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he'll have a pole or two for you to get things out of trees. The next part here is this software also allows you to, it creates a little web server inside the Raspberry Pi. And so you don't need to have internet connection to be able to start up these two locations, a local host with 5,000 as the port, and then 5001 if you want to see your car location, your chase vehicle location. So again, that's kind of handy. If you're out in the boonies and don't have a good solid internet signal, this is a good way to go. Okay, next slide. This is my road crew that went with me to pick up one of the Radiosondes. That's my granddaughter, Millie. And she's got a larger tub of stuff that I can now fit into a smaller tub. And we ended up picking up one of the Radiosondes I got over here on the table over by Slaughterville, over by Purcell. And it landed out in a nice open field. It was easy to get to. That's the landowner. We narrowed it down to a 1 mile square area, pulled in there and happened to talk to Mr. Luke and told him what we were chasing. I showed him my screen from my Raspberry Pi and I asked him if this was his land. And he said, yes, but I was just up there this morning and I didn't see anything. I said, well, it landed in the last 10 minutes. And he says, oh, really? Yeah, let's go. And so, you know, he was excited as we were about it. And so we went up there. He helped Millie get through the barbed wire, walked 100 feet, gathered up all the stuff, and he was real interested in it. He also told us that he gets 3 or 4 of these on his property a year. And he says, this is just trash to me. You know, I hate it because my cows chew these things up. And so I said, well, from now on, when you get one, here's my phone number. So, you know, if you know anybody, yeah, if you know anybody that's got some land, you know, tell them, hey, if you see these things, give me a call. Because otherwise it says right on there, dispose of properly, and people read that as pitch it in the trash. So anyhow, that's kind of a neat thing. Okay, so you saw the first option there was, you know, something this big, and you got to put the dongle up on the dashboard, and you have an antenna that you hook it up to, typically a mag mount antenna up on top. The second option is this little guy right here. Okay. This is that thing with the real long name. There's the full name there, LoRa V1.1, ESP32, 433, blah, blah, blah. But it's $35. And you can attach a little 16 or 18650 lithium battery on the back, or it's got a connector here on, so you can just hook in a iPhone charger, something like that, and run it off from one of those little battery packs. And guess what? This is a great little device. You have to get a decent antenna, you'd want to put a real antenna on here, but a HD type antenna would be more than sufficient. Here's the GPS antenna right there. So this thing has got a, yes, sir.
That GPS antenna that you see there is one that I added after I broke the one that comes on it. There's one that's a little bit nicer that comes on it.
Yeah, so here's mine. That little brown thing on the very back. Not yet, but to be fair, it is loose and it keeps, you know, it's just stuck on with cheap Chinese glue, and so it keeps coming loose. Completely red. Yeah, yeah. So in fact, I'll pass this around and let you guys take a look at it. Thank you, Rick. So it's got a UHF receiver, it's got Wi-Fi built into it, it's got a GPS receiver, it's got a little small display. All that's $35. Now, the tricky part is they're not always in stock at Amazon. And for good reason, because you can see there's a boatload of stuff in there that they do. So it's got with the software that you load in for chasing sondes, it's got the ability to put up a little web server. And so, you know, you attach your phone or whatever to the access point, the Wi-Fi access point, and then you can control and set up different things. Rick's going to talk more about that, so I'll keep moving on that. So the next slide, just a picture of what's going around the room, but for those of you on Zoom, that's what it looks like. Yeah, Rick will talk a little bit about that. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so here's a comparison of the two options that we've explored. The Raspberry Pi based solution on the side, you need to know a little bit about Unix. Some people here in the room, you're comfortable with that. Others run, you know. But you may have most of the pieces already. I had a lot of this stuff already because I've got a system that I use for field day, and I've just had a bunch of that stuff already. What's nice about the Raspberry Pi based version is it scans that entire band from 400 to 406 when you first start it up, and it looks for the strongest signal. And when it sees a strong signal, it latches onto that. And so you don't have to go program anything into it for it to pick up a strong signal. When that strong signal goes away, it goes back into scan mode, looking again, and it, you know, it'll go for till your battery dies or until 12 hours later when the next local one goes back up. It puts the maps up on a HDMI monitor, the little one like that, or a big one if you've got it hooked up at home. And it's really good as a base station or even a mobile station. The little T-beam unit, easy to install the firmware. It's easy to use, not a whole lot of pieces to it, small physically. Drawback is that you have to predefine the frequencies via the web server. It's not hard. It's just a little bit of a drawback. But overall, it is a great solution for chasing. So if you're just wanting to go out, chase a balloon, not just set it home and track it, then that's really a good one to look at. Okay, next slide. Here, there's a few other options to track that we didn't pursue. One is a Windows-based version of some software called RS-41 Tracker. You'd have to install what's called a Zadig Windows driver. Not hard, it's just something you have to do. And it uses the SDR dongle and the GPS dongle select. Test it, but that's certainly an option. And then the other option is a little LilyGo smaller board that doesn't have a GPS receiver on it. It's about 2/3 the length of the one I'm passing around. I've got an example of it over here on the table. It's $5 cheaper. And sometimes it's a good solution if the other is just unavailable. So that's an option as well. Okay, next slide. So one option of things that you can do with these recovered sondes is recycle it with an APRS protocol on a ham 70 centimeter frequency. So there's software out there, these things have been around for a number of years, so they're used all around the world. And so people have developed brand new firmware that you can squirt into these things. You do need a little $15 dongle. Let me show you what that looks like. Little $15 dongle that connects between the interface on the back of the sonde and the USB port on your computer. And so that allows you to squirt that firmware into the Radiosonde. I've got one setting over here on the table that I've converted over to APRS on 432.5. And those of you that know what AX25 sounds like, that's what it is. The difference is this is on UHF. It's on UHF, not VHF. Most people think of VHF, of APRS as on 144.390 here in the US. That's a common frequency, but it's not a required frequency. So you can put it on any appropriate ham frequency if you want to. For those that are on the Zoom call, go ahead and go to the next slide there, Rick. There's that radio on that frequency there. You can see the text on there. It says RS-41 Radiosonde firmware test in the message that it transmitted to my handy talkie. And then there's a little icon with the balloon on it in the rightmost picture. So, it's kind of a cute little setup. Now, the way you would monitor that, of course, is to just use your standard HT radio that has APRS capability. It wouldn't by itself go out into the APRS.phi world. Okay, second option there is to recycle it and poke in some new receiver frequencies into the existing firmware that came from the manufacturer. And so somebody's developed some techniques to do that. You do need to obtain a registration from the Horus group, and then you would attach a little microcontroller. Here's a little microcontroller that pokes the new values for the frequency you want to use into the firmware that's existing in there already. And it has to be inserted in there every time it gets powered up. And so that's what this setup does. And it's described out on the internet. People have developed the firmware to make it happen. So it's kind of a slick way to do that. So you would put your own call sign in there. That's an easy thing to do. Attach it to a new balloon, relaunch it, and track it on a slightly different website. Instead of sondhub.org, it's amateur.sondhub.org. I don't know if Rick, if you're going to talk about that, but there's the example of the map that it looks like. And so you can see there's several other amateurs out there floating balloons on the day that I snapped that picture. Okay, more options. The third option would be to use it as a hardwired GPS tracker. You can attach to the serial port on the bottom of or the back of the Radiosonde. It's just a standard format that all GPS units use. It's called the NMEA, the National Marine Electronics Association protocol. Simple, standard kind of thing. And it can also send out weather kind of information over the serial port for temperature and humidity. So there, number 4, you could use it as a mini weather station. Or you could use it as a Fox in the Fox hunt. You can actually, with the firmware like I've put on there for APRS, one of the options is to put in a CW or have it output a CW signal with a call sign that you define. So it could be a club call sign, it could be an individual call sign in CW. So it'd be a nice little Fox device on that. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Rick now. He's going to do some live demos and fix all the problems I screwed up. And hopefully talk about some of the challenges of recovering Radiosondes. Okay, Rick, turn it on there.
I don't remember hearing any mistakes, Bob. So
Good answer.
okay, so one hot day I went over to the National Weather Center and recorded this. So this is actually a Weather Service balloon launch that you could go watch twice a day. And this will give you an idea of what it looks like before we go chasing them. It looks like the cameraman had been drinking a little bit too much.
Or not, didn't have enough.
So my understanding is that they fill these things with hydrogen and or helium. I don't know which this is.
Hydrogen's here.
We use hydrogen.
Yep.
And so there they go. And you can see that there's a parachute underneath the balloon. And then at the very bottom is the Radiosonde that we've been talking about. I want to watch that again. Okay, so this is a picture of the live display that you get from what Bob's handing around. So I guess I don't need to show this because most of you saw that already.
Well, it's just scanning the one I handed out.
Oh, okay. So this is it changes once it's detected a Radiosonde on its frequency, then it changes to this display, which actually shows the location and the signal strength. And I don't know if you can see my mouse, but that little row of tick marks, each one of those tick marks indicates a successful reception of the most recent packet that was sent from the Radiosonde. And these are some slides from my first actual recovery. I had chased one before, but my first chase, I thought that I could find it using conventional RF direction finding techniques, and I found that it was quite difficult, and I didn't bring enough equipment with me, so I didn't get the first one I actually chased. But this one, somewhere west of Purcell, There were some cows standing nearby that were pointing the way to it. I had to do a little hike to get here. But the first thing I saw was, of course, the white hanging from the tree. And then I got a little closer, and you get a little closer and you see the string. And in the one on the right-hand side, you can see the radiosonde on the ground there. And there's pictures of it. Finally back at the vehicle. My phone camera was doing pretty good, and it doesn't show how past dusk this was. I was worried that I was going to get stuck in this field without being able to find my way back, because it was not a direct route to get there. But sometimes they land in a little bit more convenient location. This is over on Southeast 12th, just south of Alameda, the Mazio's parking lot there. People were turning off of 12th Street and trying to figure out what to do to avoid the orange thing in the middle of the drive there. I don't know if you can see it from here, but
Here, you're pointing at the line.
so coming up from the left-hand side
There's the line right there.
is where the string goes, and it actually
up over
goes.
here.
You see those power lines off to the left there? Well, the parachute went on the top side, and the radiosonde went on the low side. So the radiosonde was hanging about 10 feet above the ground from the power lines. Yeah, the utility lines. I lowered it to the ground and from this side, and then undid the string and got this mess out of their way. You know, it was causing a traffic issue. I figure I was doing a service for the community. And sometimes when you retrieve these things, so I really took this picture to show you that on the morning launches, I've only seen this on the morning launches, although I've never retrieved every launch that I've gone after, so I can't say for sure that they don't put them on the evening launches, but they put a glow stick on the morning launches for some reason. That's why I took this picture. But also in this picture, you can see, of course, the orange is the parachute. You can tell the white string, and the other white stuff in the middle is the remnants of the latex balloon. And I don't know, you may think I wadded it up like that, but I did not. That's the way it came out of the sky. And with Bob's good picture from the first of the presentation, where you can see how violent that explosion was, there's some pretty interesting dynamics that occur between the balloon explosion and the cords that are hanging down below it. And it almost looks like they're braided together sometimes. Okay, so now I was going to see if I can show you some what it looks like when these things are talking to it. So right now I've got a radiosonde that we've recovered hooked up to my computer on a serial port. And you see that it, when I powered it up, it spits out some serial information there. And if you put in a secret code, it will bring up a menu for you, and you've got some options of, so we're actually talking to the radiosonde with the firmware as they launch it from the Weather Service. And you can do some things like if I hit S, it'll give me a readout of what the current sensor information is. And you can see relative humidity. I don't know what units those are in because it doesn't seem like percent, because I don't think it's 125% humidity.
Well,
in
it is
here.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, and especially chasing in my car, some days it did feel like that. So this is just a sort of an example of what you can do once you recover them before doing any programming. I haven't done any of the reprogramming of them. Bob's the one that has done all of that so far. But you can still do some things with them as they are. So you could change the baud rate to whatever you want to within these options here. I had not connected to this a while last night when I tried to connect to it, and I couldn't remember what baud rate I had set it to. So it took me a little bit to get back to that. And there was one more thing that I was going to show you here.
Well, one of the commands here lets you change the ID that it sends out. So this is where you would put in your club call sign or your individual call.
Right, that's the serial number one here. Well, I thought it was.
I would use Ken Brown, so it'd be fine.
Yeah, so there's the actual serial number of this one that as it was launched, but you can put whatever you want in there. You can put okay, so there's a way to do the GPS, and that's what I was trying to, maybe it's measurements. Okay, so yeah, if you take the measurements menu, measurements option, it drops you down into a sub menu where you have other options, and I can hit G for GPS. No, that's not it. N for NMEA sentences. Okay, so it's if you come up and look at one of these at some point, either today or like on Elmer night, you'll see the tiny little GPS antenna it has. So it's not picking up the GPS signals, or it hasn't been able to pick them up inside the building here. But if we were outside, it would have picked up the satellites, and it would be showing you position, location. And this is much like many GPS receivers that you could plug into your computer. So your computer would use this and could parse it as if it were a GPS dongle without any additional software. That's all. Just
that'll pull location and time also, right?
right. You get everything that you normally get with GPS. What's that? It does not.
So to take that a step further, you could use that as a time base for doing FT8 out in the field on field day and not have to worry about, because FT8, you need to have a real accurate time base. And so this would be a solution for that. Antarctica. Yeah, that too.
Would you need a coat? Not for the first 4 or 5 minutes.
All right, if I can get this window over here, I will show you. Okay, so this is the SondHub website, which tracks will allow you to track all the balloons all over that are launched all over the world. And if you look at this, we'll zoom out in a minute. It's just amazing how many balloons there are. But this one is showing the two launches, one from last night and one from this morning. I can't read that over there. Is it on the one from, yes, it's 1 hour and 53 minutes ago. So this balloon is the one that was launched this morning. The last signal was received. What's the altitude? 5,835 meters? Is that what it says?
Yes,
Top left?
yes.
Okay, so that was the last signal that
And that,
the guy in Chickasha picked up. So this green line is showing you what receiver picked it up last.
Question is, what time do they launch?
About 6
AM?
usually. About
6 p.m.
yeah. And but
About
it's
6, about 7, about 6. The
AM.
Weather Service's rules is they have to be up by 7 o'clock.
yeah,
0, Z, and 12.
Yeah,
They're
but-
supposed to be up, 0, Z, and 12 there.
but
Be up at that point?
Yeah, and so they typically launch an hour before 0, Z, and
That's
12.
but I can tell you that they aren't always on time. So looking at this map, I'm going to point out, you'll see gray rings on the Sonde Hub map, and those are launch sites. And you'll see green or gold or even silver rings, and these are receivers. Like there's a receiver here in Tulsa, there's a receiver in Chickasha, there's a couple of receivers in Stillwater. If I click on those, it gives you some more information about it. Like this guy's receiver is one of these, or something very similar, running the same software. And this guy's receiver is like the Raspberry Pi, like Bob has. So you can get a lot of information from going to this website. You could do tracking. You could do tracking just using this website, but part of the problem with using only this website is that the last reading that it gets may be like this one, 1,450 meters above. Oh, it's not 1,450 meters above the ground. It's at 1,450 meters
About sea
altitude from the reference model for the Earth. And around here, our typical ground level is about 350 meters. So that's only about 1,100 meters in the air, but that's still a long way to fall with an Oklahoma wind. So it may not be very close to this last seen location, especially on like this one where it's 5,000 meters, almost 6,000 meters. What you can do though, and what I've done is you drive out to the location where it was last picked up. And if you drive out there and have one of these in your car, it'll still, the transmitter will still be transmitting. And so you can pick it up and it will update the location to where it actually has landed. And it's much easier to find them if you know where it's actually landed than if you know where it was 5 minutes before it hit the ground.
We need to put a receiver in the centroid of the landing zone.
We do. We need lots of receivers. So one of the things that Bob talked about is that you can get historical information. If you go over here and click on one of the launch sites, it brings up the option. It'll generate predictions for future launches, which in my mind is not all that helpful. because even when it starts the prediction after the balloon is launched, the predicted landing spot is not necessarily anywhere near where it actually lands. Early on when I started chasing these things, it had said it was going to land out by Newcastle. So I drove out to Newcastle, and the balloon actually landed northeast of Norman. So it was a lot of driving for nothing. But if you click on the historical button, it'll think a minute, and it'll say, okay, I'm assuming you want this year. What month do you want? And I'm just going to go ahead and leave it for September. But you could pick any month that you wanted and say fetch, and it'll display all the previous landing spots. And the darker the ring is, the lower the last detected altitude was. Like this one was detected as low as 383 meters, which is very near ground level. This blue one was 1,361 meters, which is not that close to ground level. But you can also, once you've clicked on this, you can click on and say, okay, well, what did that flight path look like? And it'll show you, once it thinks about it a bit, it'll show you the flight path that was taken to get to this landing point. Well, do you see anything?
It may be hidden by the boxes.
I don't know. Live demos. I have seen this work before, though. I don't know why it's not working right now. But
Rick, on the two you had up there before, they both had a big squiggly line in the middle.
mhm.
Is that apogee, or is that when it's going slow, or when it's,
that is the
there you go.
that is the track. That's the path that it flew. Okay, so I just wasn't patient enough. Yeah. It
Is that typically where it apogees and it comes down slowly and it goes all over the place, or is it a altitude?
no, it can be like that at any altitude. And probably over here on the left-hand side here is probably where the balloon burst.
Oh, to the left of the camera.
Right. Yeah.
Normally trying to get winds 3, 6, 9.
Hey, Rick,
Yes, sir.
click on the telemetry graph right there.
Oh,
And now as you swipe back and forth across that grid, it'll show you where on the map.
Oh, yeah.
So the blue line there is altitude, so you can see where it peaks and then it drops a whole lot quicker than it
So
went up.
right here is where it burst. It did not make any change. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay, well, we are, you guys have any questions?
I followed this before. The thing that really threw me off is I was watching J vehicles, watching the radio sign, and it was veering like 3 miles, where it was landing. And it just kept moving all over the place, and supposedly it was landed because it didn't show the parachute anymore either.
I would not always believe the parachute indication. That it's been my experience, and I really don't believe the predicted landing spot until it gets very close to the end. The web interface that the little TTGo tracker puts up also has a prediction, and I've seen a difference between the Sondhub prediction and that prediction. That's just, I saw one that was predicted to land in Mexico So I'm not sure what algorithm that they use to generate those predictions, but they can vary quite wildly.
And it ended up, it showed that it was landing at the wildlife management area,
Mhm.
and it actually landed just north of Nova.
Interesting.
How soon after a launch do you start to chase?
Well, since it usually lands while I'm at work, I usually wait till lunchtime. But I mean, realistically, you know, once it gets down to the last, 30 minutes of the drop, you could start heading out that way. But if you go an hour ahead of time,
Yeah.
you may be 20 miles off. So, yeah. Yeah, well, and the parachute, as you saw from the one wad of the balloons that I had. And now, if you're tracking the balloon, it'll tell you what its rate of descent is. So if it's falling about 5 or 6 meters per second, then the parachute's probably working. But I've seen it also fall 2 or 3 meters per second, and it takes a long time for those balloons to come down. And I've also seen it fall 10, 12 meters per second, and it's going to be here pretty soon at that rate. It's around 3 hours. 2.5 to 3.5 hours, probably. Yes, sir.
How long does the battery last in here after it hits the ground?
That's a good question. I've read that it will keep going for about 6 hours. I've seen them keep going for more than 7 hours. Beyond that, I don't know. I do know that after 12 hours, they're usually not still transmitting. So if you don't have a ground location on them before 12 hours, you may just have to go hunting for it. So lots of times, and especially now that it's fall and moving towards winter, you're getting shorter time to go look for them before it's dark. So it's going to be dark almost for sure before you get to the balloon, but you can drive out to the location in the area and get a last reading of where it precisely fell. And then you can go back and pick it up in the daylight if it's someplace manageable.
What type of weight are you looking at with the parachute, Radiosondes, the line, everything?
What'd you say, Bob? A couple of pounds?
Yeah.
No.
Not even that, no.
Yeah.
Couple hundred.
The balloon is probably the biggest weight.
Yeah.
And
I've got a little parachute over there and you can see it's pretty light. And there's the tail end of the balloon.
But the balloon's the most significant weight in the whole package. Yeah. You could. Unfortunately, the strings are usually tangled up in tree limbs or thorns or something. So
Yeah, in the video that Rick had where they were launching it, you could see there was a really long line on there. I read that they typically are 75 feet. I don't know if that's your experience, Rick.
what I've measured anywhere between 80 and 100 feet.
Yeah. And I thought, well, that's dumb. Why don't they make it shorter? Well, they do that long distance because they don't want the heat that's collected by the balloon to affect the readings in the sensor package.
Do you have another question? If balloon appears to be inflated, do not touch. Yeah. I've had that pointed out to me several times. But I've never seen one that appeared to be inflated. Yes, Ken? I have never seen anything come from the one from the
Amarillo,
west.
yeah.
There is a launch site up north that is not a weather service launch site. It's a Department of Energy launch site. And
Did we ever find out what kind of energy they're looking for?
no, it's called atmospheric radiation monitoring. Why am I not? Okay, so here's the DOE side. It says it's the Sulphur Municipal Airport, but that's a lie.
Yeah.
I think it used to be. I think the DOE launch site used to be at Sulphur Municipal, but now it's up here. The good thing, I mean, they launch. Seems like this site launches balloons 2 or 3 hours apart. Not every 2 or 3 hours, but when they launch a balloon, there'll be another one in 2 or 3 hours. So you have the potential of getting more radiosondes, but they all land up here. I mean, the furthest south that I've seen one land is wherever. Oh, there's a little town in here. I don't remember the name of it. North of Guthrie, yeah. Mulhall, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it as far south as Mulhall, and I have picked up one of these. The nice thing about these radiosondes is they also include a pressure sensor. Temperature, humidity, pressure, location, GPS. So
Not
that
in
we've
the
seen.
routine ones.
Yeah.
I've got one other slide I wanted to hit and then we are done. And it's really kind of a challenge. And it's something to think about. Rick, it's this one.
Yeah, I just have to get back to it.
This summer, there was a group in New England that did a thing they call HAB, high altitude balloon, HAB-GAB 2023. And it's on the slide here. But what they did was they had a single 2,000 gram weather balloon that they sent up, and attached to that was a crossband UHF VHF repeater that was supposed to last for 2 or 3 hours as this was going up. And think about that, you know, at the kind of altitude we're talking about with, 50, 100 mile radius on that, that was kind of a neat deal all by itself. They also had a auto rotation copter that was released at 80,000 feet and used a light APRS tracker. Some of you know what those are. Those are about $100 to $130 that do some of the similar kind of stuff that we're talking about for free. They also had a glider that was released at 80,000 feet. And they had 2 live camera feeds at 1.2 gigahertz, all hanging from this balloon, along with the main payload, which rode all the way up to where the balloon popped. And that was using a repurposed RS-41, like we've been talking about here on the 432.501. The people that did that, it was a joint effort by a local ham radio club there in Massachusetts and a makers group there close by and several schools. So I just thought that was really a neat thing to try to tie schools and ham radio and maker fair kind of folks all together to do a joint effort. So that might be something we think about as a club project over the next year or two. So anyhow, give that some thought.
That's the same question. There's 2 questions of what time do they launch? Are they 4 days with other weather stations? We did that. Yeah, that's good address. Wayne asked if there are different colors for the icon
That means anything.
I think I have shoot that one. Like the periscope have different colors, does that indicate anything? Not that we've been able to figure it out, not that I've been able to figure it out.
I think that there's several different applications that we see here. We've been talking about Sond Hub, and my understanding is not only do they change the color of the track, but they also change the type of icon, whether you're ascending or descending. So I think that's maybe the difference.
That's the color of the balloon.
Yes.
Whether it's ascending or descending or whether it's landing.
Right, right.
People fly far. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's,
That'd be a big balloon.
yeah. By the way, on the balloons, they do start out around 6 feet. You saw as they were launching in the video that Rick had. I've read that at altitude, that balloon expands out to the size of a 2-car garage. So you can see a big difference in pressure and big difference in size because of that.
So you can put 2 cars in that balloon.
If you could fit them in there up at 22
Oh.
miles up, yeah.
And when you were talking about the Pico balloons earlier, you
Yeah.
forgot to mention that sometimes they get shot down by
By US
Air
Air
Force
Force.
jets.
Yeah,
$10 balloon with a $500,000 rocket.
but it only took them 2 tries to knock it down, so. Okay, well, we thank you for your time today. Sorry, we went a little bit long, but it looks like there's some interest in this topic. So come see us at Elmer Night, and we'd be glad to talk further and get you going on your own project if you'd like.
Let's thank Bob and Rick for a great program today.
Thank you.
You can catch them after the meeting or in the next 5 minutes. We're going to take a break. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. You can ask them any other questions if you happen to think of one.
Good. Good job.
You gave me $5.
What?
Why are you?
Oh, thank you.
Was it your photo?
Yeah. You forgot me already.
I'm gonna wear this.
Okay, let's go ahead and take our seats and we'll start with the meeting. Screens for me. Yeah, yes. So I can see everybody on Zoom for a minute. Probably not. All right, we'll go ahead and start here. Do we have any visitors joining us this morning? Any visitors? Please, if you would, give us your name, and if you have a call, give us your call. Welcome this morning, and we'll have to work on that call. That's Dad has to work with you on that. Get you that call. All right. At this point, I would like us to take a short pause to remember all the hams that are now SK. Okay, the minutes of the meeting are by Chris, and they're posted online on the webpage. So if you like to read them, they'll be on the webpage after the meeting, not directly after, but within that next week. At this point, I would like Mr. Larry Goodwin, our Treasury Secretary, to give the financial report.
Okay. We've had a couple members join at last meeting and since. So that's brought in $73. We've paid our tower dues. It's a liability insurance for our equipment, for our activities. That was $240. And so our net loss for the month is $217. Like I say, for the year, we're doing quite well still. On the balance sheet, we have $2,294 in the checking account, $23,534 in savings, $154 in petty cash, for a grand total of $25,984. Anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Larry. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up at this point on the financial report. It's been brought to my attention, and I would like to present it to the club that it would be a good idea for the Treasury Department, Treasury area, to have a laptop the club owns that just keeps the Treasury information on it. That way, whoever the treasurer is doesn't have to, he or she does not have to use their own personal equipment or keep it on their laptop. And I would like to propose the club and try to get a motion on this, that we set aside $600 to cover for a nice laptop for future use for the club, for the treasury.
Make a motion. Second.
We have a motion over here. Second, another second here. All in favor of purchase, setting aside $600 for that laptop for the treasury, please show by raising your hand. Okay. Any opposed to that? All right, then the motion is carried. And we will set aside $600 for a laptop for the Treasury Department that is owned by the club, and all information will be maintained on that laptop and kept up by the club.
Software. To go from that forward, right?
Not necessarily. Generally, most Windows software and stuff can handle that, you have for it. Anything extra and stuff, generally our, yeah. Hey,
So yeah, we're talking about huh? Right. The software on the that we use has been sunsetted. It still does everything we need to do very well. It is a bot program. If we go to something that's newer, everything going to subscription. And if you go with this software on a subscription, by the time you get to do what you want to do, you're looking at $100 a month. So this software is doing great. As long as it will run, I'm happy to keep it going.
all right, that should answer the question on that. We'll go forward with that. All right, at this time, I would like Mr. Mark Klein, our resident Oklahoma ARRL section manager, if you would, to give us an update on ARRL and upcoming events. Yeah. You can read my chicken scratch. Okay.
Greetings, the greetings, all the list will make it go quicker. ARRL is still there. I have said this a number of times, ARRL fees have gone up $10, which is not unexpected. The thing that I think is unexpected is if you wish to keep your paper copy of the QST or On the Air or QEX or Contesters Journal, starting January 1st, you get to pay $25 annually to get a paper copy. You will still get all 4 copies digitally, and there's not a problem with that. But there is a paper tax going on effect January 1st. Any lifetime members here in the group, if you wish to keep, and I know Peter's answer, if you wish to keep your paper copy, you must tell member services between now and the end of the year that you wish to keep a paper copy, and you will get a free copy. My sense is they're looking for dead life members. So if they don't call back, if they don't call up and say, I want a piece of paper, they may find people that aren't there anymore. So if you do have a life membership, you can do that and keep it going on the paper side. I don't know. There's a big controversy about the whole thing. Paper costs a lot of money, and they're trying to push everybody the other direction, which CQ and World Trader, oh wait, they're out of business, and the rest of those magazines have done it a long time ago. So that's the big changes at the big headquarters stuff. Everything's still going on. Volunteer on the Air is still there. You may operate, you can still get points for talking to other hams around the world, and that's kind of fun. Here's the upcoming events list for SCARS.
September and October is very busy in Hammond Radio.
Very busy. So September 21st Thursday is the all ham dinner at the Golden Palace Restaurant up in Midwest City / OKC / Del City, whatever that area is.
Please take a note. It starts.
14, it's at 15th and Air Depot. So if you go north on 15th or north on Air Depot past 15th, you will see it on the east side. It runs from 6 till 8 or 8:30 or wherever the storm comes in, like it did last time and shut it down early. We usually started that at 6:30. We're moving it a half an hour early to let the early bird lunch guys get their meals at 6. September 23rd, 2 days later, Max Westheimer OU Aviation Festival just down the road here. We'll be there with a booth from 9 till 2. If you have mobile gear that you would like to show off, brag, test, destroy, feel free to bring what you have. Last year we did a lot of WinLink stuff with really low power. Lee brought some stuff that did a lot of
Go box.
What?
His go box.
his Go Box that did a lot of contacts across the state and country. I think you did some foreign countries, didn't you, last time? So that's kind of a fun deal. But that's OU Aviation Festival. It's always huge. We get a lot of pilots that are hams and hams that are pilots, and that's been a big deal for us. September 30th is what's called the Oklahoma DX Association dinner. It will be down at the Weather Palace. So if you wish to go do a tour of that place, National Weather Center from 5:30 to 8 p.m. on September 30th, they will be catered by Ray's Barbecue, and somewhere in the order of $20 to $25 setup sign up piece. It'll be in the newsletter this week to let you go ahead and sign up for that. But that should be a lot of fun. There is a at this point, but there will be another speaker in addition to the tour. So if you're interested in the Weather Palace, so you want to go watch, let's see, 5:30 to 8. So you'll see a balloon launch if you go over there and watch that happen. That'll be fun. Norman Night Out is October 2nd. We did that last year in the mall, the northeast corner of the mall. I think this year we're in the southeast corner of the mall because they have a moon bounce thing for Ken Sanford and all of his young kids buddies go jump in the moon bounce. October 2nd is the Norman Night Out, Sooner Mall parking lot, southeast corner. We typically have the same demo that we do at the OU festival. So if you've got equipment, bring it out. We'll try it. If you want to try somebody else's equipment, that's a great night to go do that kind of thing.
We usually get a lot of response on that one.
Yeah, big Norman Night Out.
No.
There's
That
they had a preparedness inside the mall. They were going to do an emergency preparedness thing. Says here 6 o'clock to 9 p.m. So right as the heat is going away. It's always hot that day. But there was supposed to be an emergency preparedness event at the mall. However, there was no emergency and they didn't prepare. So they put it at the same time as the Weather Festival.
Oops.
Whoops. So they moved that around. Cora meeting is there. That's not a big deal except for us Cora folks. We will be running the Hamfest down there in Ardmore more later. October 14th is the Weather Center Festival. So that's the National Weather Festival. Peter's looking at me strange. Festival. No. Festival, not a T. Festival. Weather Center Festival. October 14th. And that's going to cause a problem for us. Mark will handle it here in a little bit. Norman, down there in the big south town of Norman, 8 to 2 is when that one runs. We typically do. Yes, sir.
I would like to add that I need at least a half a dozen people that can tell me they can be there that day. I need you there that morning a little earlier than that, because we again this year, and we got a pat on the back and a compliment from the Weather Center that we, as a team, land the 3 helicopters from the 3 news media sources. And at the end of the festival, we're out there making sure that the public stays back far enough and help them to leave the festival.
Just to be clear, we don't land the helicopters.
No,
We guide them to land.
we guide them down to land. I've talked to actually, since we were told we get to do that again, I've talked to each of the news stations and the people that comes in. I know 2 of them, and how they want to land, where they want to land. I mean, they got an area up there on the platform, and how they set up across there 3 together. And I need at least a half a dozen people to volunteer to work with me to do crowd control and to help them land and take off. So if you want to do that, get with me and we'll go from there.
You get to wear a cool vest. This is from 8 till 2. The launch is, or the landing is when?
They usually do the landing right about 9 a.m. between 9 and 10, depending on the weather. And they'll come in and at their own good time, basically, but we can track them now. And they'll come in and then they'll indicate to me which one it wants to land where.
So that's the 14th, and we typically run 2 events there. We typically sidle up with National Weather Museum and the emergency managers. Are you there this year, Galen? So we may have 3 locations.
So this may be more appropriate to talk to you guys about, but I found out yesterday that Oklahoma County Emergency Management, who's always there too, is bringing their portable power down and planning to
4.
bring up a portable 70-centimeter repeater.
Oh, cool.
on site.
Is that Johnny?
Gone. On site.
Oh, not Wingate. Okay.
No.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
So John Comstock. Okay, good. So we'll have 4. Oh,
A-
the big one. Oh, Piglet. Oh, this could be a lot of fun.
So we need a lot of folks from the club
Yeah.
to come out and participate so we can work at
that's-
each of these different posts as
That's-
well as my team.
So that's 4 good locations that we can do some fun stuff with. That could be neat. And we could probably track, let's see, 6. We can probably track the afternoon balloon too. It'd probably another fun thing. Put up a big screen of that. Yeah, away from that fine fellow with the disco. Yeah. And we can
Good
use
idea.
somebody's big TVs to have the balloon watch. That'd be fun. Good deal. So, okay, we're now up to 4 locations at least. I know that the Oklahoma Student Amateur Radio Club is also trying to do a planned activity, and I will give John the information. We got plenty of things to do to make that happen. Thanks. That's a good deal. That's an awesome deal. So we'll have plenty of stuff to do, and putting them in a big corral would be kind of a neat idea. And away from that nice guy with the speaker. PA system. 27th, 28th is the Hammerama Hamfest in Ardmore, just down there at the beautiful Ardmore Convention Center. That'll be pretty much pretty much a Saturday show. The Friday show is a setup, and all day Saturday is where it's going to be. Our friend Richard Lenore from MTC is supposed to be there with all of his gear and have a good showing at that event. So we'll have a good vendor stacked up waiting to go. And then we got a ton of other stuff, but I will defer to Mark's problem and let him finish that part off.
Okay, the problem he's referring to is the function we have on October 14th, which is the Weather Center Festival in Norman. That just so happens to be the same weekend as the club meeting. So I would like to propose the club that we move it up to the 21st, the next weekend, which just luckily happens to be open. So at this time, there you go. Any complaints about moving it to the 21st? Okay, we have a second on that. All in favor of moving it from the 14th to the 21st next month? Show a sign of hands. Okay, any opposed? Then the meeting for next month, well, write it down so you don't forget it. Will not be the 14th. It will be the 21st. Okay, now we can move forward from there.
Right, just at the weather.
Right, we definitely show up on the weather center. We need everybody to participate in that because like,
Just like church, we take attendance down there too.
right. All right, at this time, I want to go ahead and start with the nets. And we'll start with Phil on the Aries net. Dr. Phil.
I have an activity to discuss. Can I discuss the activity?
Real briefly, because we're running out of time.
We're running out of time. Denny asked me to announce and invite everyone to the Stars Fall Picnic. The picnic is normally held at Denny's Hacienda, normally held on the same Saturday as the club meeting, which would be October 14th, normally from about 4 p.m. to around 7 p.m. or whenever we get food cooked. We checked it out. That turned out to be a good weekend because there's no OU home football game that day. So now I need two things, some discussion. Do we want to move the picnic to the 21st? And if you guys decide to do it, check out and see if OU's got a home football game. That what time?
They won't know. They won't know.
They won't know.
There you go.
We'd be drunk and show up at Denny's house.
Well, that seemed like a good idea to me. I like all parts of that. Okay. I ne-
offer school bus training.
I need a resolution that you'll cover for the cost of the food.
It's in there.
It's already in there.
It's already in there. Okay, now do you want me to talk about next?
Everybody agreed with the 14th as far as the club picnic this year? We can do it. So moved? Okay. Go ahead, Aries.
Aries net. We had an interesting Aries net 2 weeks ago. We lost AC power at the repeater site and the standby engine generator did not start. So VHF was down, UHF was down, and we did a true, honest, simplex net. Chad and Jeff did a great job covering that net. That was a challenge, but we made it happen. I understand the STARS Executive Committee is discussing things that would eliminate that problem in the future. That happens every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. local time, on or about the STARS repeater frequency. If we can't do it on VHF, we do it on UHF. Come and join us.
Thank you, sir. Denny, if you would mention the MacNet and the Gossip Net.
All righty, MacNet is every morning, 9 o'clock. Monday through Saturday. And anyhow, come join us with that one. 9 a.m. in the morning, you know, when the sun's out in the east. Also, the Gossip Net on Tuesday at 8:30, immediately following the Aries Net. That's another good old rag chew net. Let us know what's going on and stuff. Anyhow, come join us. Have a lot of fun up there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And if Lee, if you would talk about DMR net on Mondays.
Sure. Every Monday evening at 8:15 p.m., we have the statewide DMR net, Aries net. And we always try to do some type of education program during it, or any upcoming events. anything that's something that someone may be having statewide. So again, every Monday evening at 2015 hours, talk group 3140.
Thank you, sir. We go over here to Mr. Bill Baker, if he would, talk about the 10-meter net, and if you would, go ahead and just mention the 6-meter net too.
Thank you. We have our 10-meter net, as you know, every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. on 28.445 upper sideband. So come and join that. Mondays at 8 p.m., the 6-meter net. Jim from Blanchard, KG5BIM, did net control it. And then Harold Black took it over when Jim was not able to. And Tom left, but he had some information today on the Herald, and it's not good if it's true.
We're not going to bring that up.
Okay. So anyway, 6-meter net Monday, 10-meter net Wednesday.
Thank you, sir. We have an online program called Discord. It's interesting. You can go on there, and we've got a setup over there on that for the club, and you can tell people what you're making contacts on and ask about equipment and radio problems and stuff on that. It's really good setup on there. Get on there and talk with the group that's usually on most days, and see what's going on. We have a WinLink Hamward game that Mr. Klein set up for us, and it's a lot of fun. It starts on Sunday night and runs through Saturday, and you go on there and you get basically a hidden 5-letter word, and you try to guess. You get up to 6 guesses to see, if you can guess whatever the word is, and it allows you to check out your WinLink setup and see how well it works. And that's the purpose really of that. POTA, there's a lot of guys doing weekend POTA, Parks on the Air. John Jets, he's out there as often as he can be. And if you'd like to get into that, you can talk with John Jets. You can either be an activator at a park somewhere, or you can be a hunter where you just go out and make contacts with those parks on the air, and you get certificates for it. At this time, I would like to have oh. Oh. Yeah. I was going to get to, okay. Okay. Okay.
Technically, just for an update, technically on the power outage, the generator fired just fine. The storm blew up the transfer switch out at the county switch. So yeah, I got the dirty look when I said, what, didn't the generator fire? And the gal goes, it ran all darn day. It just wasn't getting us anywhere. So they had a generator tech and fixed it that next day. Life is good. So yes, storms take down stuff. The same thing for the DMR net. We had a failure last Monday, and that was a big failure. DMR went down for some reason. I have not heard why yet. Anybody heard why? Nope. So that was a lot of fun. I did a net with me and I think 3 others. Mike was on there, and Ed was on there, and other Mike was on there, and James is on there. That was about it. That was the whole state thing. So, and the final thing is we have one more opportunity not on the list. We have confirmation that October 10th, is that correct, Mike? October 10th, Mike will be running a Stop the Bleed seminar. And if you don't know what that is, cut yourself and then we'll show you. Is that what we should say, Mike? Get an artery? No. Self-limiting problem. Hold on, do you want to say anything about it? Nope. Stop the Bleed is a certificated event that will let you do, it's about an hour. It's about an hour or so. It will give you the basics on stopping the bleed, since you can bleed out in 4 minutes. Yeah. Oh yeah, 40 seconds. Yeah. Or if you're drinking, like I said earlier, 20 seconds as it goes squirting out of there. So that will be here at the October 10th. You will get a certificate. And that certificate will, with $5, will get you a ice cream at Brahms, right? No, the certificate is a stop the bleed certificate that will let you prove your valor. American who? Oh, American College of Surgeons. That's right. Our friends, the surgeons that cause all the bleed outs. No. So that will be here on the 10th. 8 folks are can sign up for that thing. First come, first serve. Details will be in the newsletter this week if you want more. Sign up here if you want to. We'll put your name on the list and take care. Yes, sir. You have a question? Time. Good question. Time will be here 5 o'clock before Elmer night. So we're going to run from 5 till 6:30 ish in the evening. Good question. That's it.
Okay.
I think I'm done.
At this point, I would like Ed Hatch to come up. He's going to do the Siren Net /VE report.
That's Wayne.
Well, Wayne usually does it, but I'm going to have you do it.
That's
Oh,
right.
is he? Okay,
Wayne can do his thing.
Wayne will be able to do.
Yeah.
But let's get the VE report. First of all, y'all should be asking, why am I doing the VE report? Because somebody named Peter is actually deciding to go back to some country named Canada, right? Home. So the report, we had 5 applicants. We had 1 new general, 1 upgraded general, and 2 new techs. So it was a good night for all, except 1, but she'll study and come back with us, hopefully. And as Peter is departing to the Great White North, it starts snowing next month. Or did it start already?
I don't know. I think maybe this week.
But the group got together, VE wise, and actually would like to present you with your last thing to pack, since we obviously know you're packing.
Thank you very much. You might have seen that probably.
That's right. But it doesn't like hurt again. For those who are interested, obviously, Pro Laser Cuts does a great job on these. And we sensed that Peter would remember his new call sign. Yes.
No, that's right. I might end up getting DD3 as well.
You can never have too many.
Now you gotta do is ship us down.
Good deal. Wayne can handle the siren part.
Yes. Before we get to Wayne doing the siren part on, I would like to say, as president of the club, that we are losing a wonderful person that's been with the club a lot of years. And there's a lot of us that's moved up in the testing and got new license thanks to this guy. He's pushed us, he's encouraged us, he's helped us. He's helped the club immensely. And I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to this gentleman. And so I would like everybody, for me, to stand and applaud Mr. Peter Laws for the. Thank you, Peter. And remember now yeah, and you got to promise you're going to make contact with the club. We do have Elmer Night Zoom, and we have radio that you can get on there and show us that you got it set up. All right, now let's go to Wayne for the siren net.
Okay, everybody hear me?
No audio. No audio, Wayne. Hold on a second. Mark's checking here.
Hello. Testing. Hello.
Yeah. You're muted for some
Go
reason.
ahead.
It's not coming. Wait a minute.
Okay, how about now?
All right.
Test. Hello.
Now it's still don't hear him.
Okay,
Siren net managers absolutely appreciate the work do and going out and verifying that our going license for is actually work. We have 27 minutes to get.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm watching the clock.
And we're on.
Okay, well, I'm set up.
Still can't hear Wayne.
No, it's not gonna happen, I guess.
Wayne, I can hear you. You're just not very loud.
Okay, well, I'm guessing it's a problem on their end now.
That one, isn't it?
Well, to be fair, Norman's got.
Sorry, Wayne. He's working on it.
Okay, you can go ahead and have Ed do it. If he can hear me.
Still can't hear him. Oh, okay. Have Ed do it. Okay. Okay, we'll go to our backup. See, when we go down, we got a backup.
We have backup, huh? Okay, so every Saturday at noon, we obviously have the siren test net. It's on the UHF side repeater. Everything works well. We actually need some of you guys, if you're in the Moore area. I know Galen's keeps a good eye on his sirens, but we've lost a lot of our Moore siren reporters over the last, 6-8 months. They've all moved off. So if you're up in that area and you're interested, by all means, Galen's good at letting us know when he has one who needs to be checked out, and we usually will run somebody up to it. But if you're wanting to get interested, it's a great time to get out, test your radio, and learn where all the sirens are, because sometimes it's surprising where they actually are located, where we think they're located. But it's a good time. We've got a siren net coming up today at noon, and I'm calling the net, so I'll be out of here and get set up and ready for it. Any questions, you can always email us at siren@w5nor.org. Any questions? It's a good time. Peter will miss you on the net because that's one person less. Norman 54. So if you're out that way, out toward the lake, it needs a reporter. Okay.
See you Tuesday. All right. Thank you for that report. I do have one announcement that Mr. Lee here, Mr. Lee Greenleaf has a need for Roan 45 tower sections. If any of you have it just out there collecting weeds or getting mud on it and stuff, contact him. But just let him know and contact Lee and help him out there. All right. Any other new business? Any other? Okay. Now remember, the next club meeting is October the 21st here. And hopefully we'll get all the activities listed in the newsletter and we'll go from there. All right. Meeting adjourned.